What is up, everybody? I'm excited to be here today on Infinite Impact Radio and Infinite Impact TV. If you're watching this on YouTube, we have got James Hackney, who's going to pronounce it a little bit different when he introduces himself, as you'll see in a moment. He's a host of the Millennial Motivation podcast. He's a coach, and I wanted to share this because this is what caught my eye when we talked the first time, and I went and looked at his podcast. I was immediately drawn in and was like, I got to get him on the show because he'll be a perfect fit for this. But he's on a mission to stop millennials dying at 25 and for it to take 50 years to bury them. So I think I got that right. If not, you can correct me on that too when we dive in, James. So how are you doing today?
I'm amazing. Thank you very much for having Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Yes, of course. And before we go any deeper into that mission, I do want to say, we were just laughing before we started because I asked him, I said, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name right. And I said it. Of course, I'm from the South in the U.S. And you are from where?
From England, the middle of England, a place called Stoke-on-Trent.
So you were just telling me that here we pronounce H's, whereas you don't really pronounce the H, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we would say James Hackney.
Yeah.
No H. I don't know why. It's a thing. We just don't seem to use H's.
Yeah, that's interesting though. So this is like a 2-for-1. The people listening get two different accents.
They do. Hopefully they can understand my accent. It's a mixture of a few places in the world.
Yeah, between you and me, well, for me, they usually have to put the podcast on a little fast speed because I tend to talk slower being from the South. My friend and I actually do a podcast together, and he's from Mississippi. I'm from South Carolina. We set the timer for 10 minutes, and we talk extra fast because we know it'll sound normal speed to everybody listening, and then we have to shut it off because we know as Southerners, too, we will continue to talk for the rest of the day, like I'm doing right now. So let's just get off of me and get back to James real quick. So, James, if you would, please, before we get into your mission and your podcast and your coaching and anything else you want to share with us, if you would just take a minute and just share your backstory, your origin story behind this, why you wanted to start all this, what motivated you to create a positive impact in the world.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll give you a shortened down version. So I class myself as I'm on a journey at the moment in time, which kickstarted back in September 2017. I just bought a house with my partner at the time. 2 weeks later, I found that she was seeing somebody else and love for somebody else. So we broke up. And that's when it really kickstarted my journey. I started to spiral down over the next few months. We were selling the house. And over the next few months, my nan was diagnosed completely out of the blue with terminal cancer. For 12 days later, on Christmas Eve, she passed away. We watched her pass away in her home. And then in April in 2018, my auntie lost a battle with cancer. And that was in 2018. And I just spiraled down, negative emotions. I was still in the house. The house had been sold, but we were in the moving out stage. So it was due to be released from myself in June, where I was no longer the owner of the property. And I kept spiraling down, just negativity, no confidence, no self-belief. I literally hit what I class as my rock bottom, spending 2 weeks inside the house, not eating, not drinking, not going out, not speaking to anybody, not going to work, just completely numb. And I kickstarted my journey by reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And there's a bit in there it talks about how you want to be remembered, like your eulogy. And the things that I was listing of how I wanted to be remembered was nowhere near to what I was feeling at the moment in time. So I embarked on a journey of self-development, a struggle to get myself out of the rut. And I noticed I needed to change my habits and my routines and what I was doing on a daily basis, because at that time, what I was doing was keeping me where I was. It was keeping me stuck. Cut a long story short, six months later, I built myself up to then go traveling the world solo. So I went traveling the world for 6 months, saw some amazing places, and I lived a dream. There's a particular moment, which I can touch on later on, where I sat back and I've never felt the emotions of, I had dreamed about this all my life, and I was doing exactly what I dreamed about. And that really, really started to ignite me to want to help millennials to do the exact same. Then when I returned back from traveling, I walked into a pub with some friends, and they were having the same conversations. They were complaining about the same problems. They were complaining about the work, they were doing, and it was like a conversation I could have had with them 10, 12 months ago. And I thought, you know what? I've been on such a journey, such an adventure. I need to help other millennials to actually realize that at the age of 25, 26, 30, 35, that we don't have to settle for something that we do not enjoy. We don't have to settle to work into retirement, which then made me start the podcast, and then helping to coach other millennials to really create momentum towards their dreams.
That's great. I love that.
That's a short version.
Yeah, I love the story though. I mean, it's the journey. It follows the hero's journey, which I don't know if you're familiar with Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, where, you know, you go out, you go on that journey, you step into your fear, you find that, you know, that gold, that reward, which is obviously symbolic for what you found while you were on your journey, and you bring it back. But then the journey is not complete until you share it with others. So that's what you're doing now. And I think that's really, that's great. I love it. So I did want to ask you this, because this intrigued me a little bit as somebody who's been going through, I've been spending this year doing a lot of changes as far as habits and morning routines, meditating, things like that, getting back into exercising. So when you decided that you had to make that change, and you decided you were going to go and, you know, fulfill your dream to travel solo, but before that, you actually mentioned that you had to make some changes in your life. Did you do things like change your mind, do mindset practices, read more, exercise, things like that?
Yeah, completely. Where I was at that stage of, and I think it was where I'd been all my life, I was so used to waking up in the morning, getting up late, rushing around the house, getting out to work, coming back in, watching TV, and never doing anything. Do you know, I was spending 90% of my time doing things that I didn't enjoy. So when I was in this rut, in this period where I was trapped in the house, my habits were completely just watching Netflix, browsing social media, and just the mindset emotions as well, of just allowing myself to think negative emotions and never catching myself. So then I thought, you know what? I've got to live my day completely different, because I'm a firm believer, it's completely true. How you live today is how you live your life. I was like, right, I need to change this up. So I started to research and started by a morning routine. And what could I do in the mornings? And meditation was a huge part. Meditation was huge in regards to just settling my mind, let me understand my emotions, where I was. It's okay to feel how I was, but it's okay to feel how I was, but it's not okay to stick with that. If you want to change that, you can set about that change for your mindset and for your physical habits. So yeah, complete and utter change of what I was doing in the mornings and in the evenings and during the day, really.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, we don't realize, like you said, you were in that routine and you were just like, you were comfortable. So you know, a lot of times we want to stay in the comfort zone instead of stepping out of that comfort zone. It's much easier to be comfortable, even though it's really painful. You know, it's a really,
you don't want to be there sometimes.
Yeah. It's a wicked little trick, you know? So I love that. So you went on this journey, and then you came back and you decided you wanted to do something. And I know one of the biggest things you've done is started this podcast. And I'm like really impressed, because you and I were talking before we got on. I jumped on and I looked and I saw where you had posted 100th episode, which is an awesome milestone. Congratulations. But here's what's really awesome about it is, how long have you been podcasting?
I've been podcasting now for just over 4 months.
So 100 episodes in 4 months. That's great. I mean, that you were dedicated. That's consistent. You really got momentum going. So, I mean,
fully.
Was it your goal to do that many that quickly, or did you just find yourself loving it so much that you just went straight ahead and jumped in full force?
Well, it was more of a full force. You're quite right. I thought, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to throw everything at this, like just fully indulge myself in completely changing. And I know a guy who is quite a big podcaster in America, and it was all over the world, and he does a show every single day. So I was like, right, I'm going to do a show every single day. And he told me that will then get you ranking up on iTunes. So I was like, great, I'll do one every single day. And then I did that for a month, and I was like, I'm doing these shows, but I'm never really sitting, because of how busy I was with working a 9 to 5 job as well. Like, I'm never actually sitting back, and I feel like I'm just producing content for the sake of it and not actually offering quality. So I reduced that down to 4 episodes, and since then, personally, I've gotten a lot more value feedback from people saying that it's more concentrated value and it's more quality. So quality over quantity, but still 4 episodes a week I feel, to get the momentum, is something I'm really proud of, I'd like to say.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's great. I mean, you're making me feel bad now because I actually I just launched the podcast that you're on now. I just launched and I love it. I love interviewing people like you and hearing your stories. But before that, I had another one, and I still do, where I was sort of sharing my journey.
Yeah.
And I've been so busy over the past 2 weeks that sort of got pushed back. So it makes me want to jump back in. But I'm going to take your advice, and instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it, put some forethought in it, think about your audience, and share. So in these episodes I haven't had a chance to listen to them. So are you just going in and sharing your journey along the way, the things that you're learning, the things that you've discovered, or are you also interviewing people, or is it just solely your story?
So on the podcast, we do interviews. We do about 3 or 4 interviews a month with guests like yourself who have embarked on a journey, who are breaking free from the social norms, the status quo, and actually challenging themselves, and who have suffered from failure as well. And when a lot of the podcasts, we do 4 episodes a week, and as I said, 3 or 4 interviews a month. And when I'm talking on the podcast, it's more around my experiences, and also what I am learning from reading these books, from watching videos online, and what I'm seeing day to day. And it's to allow millennials to believe in themselves, to believe that they can change. And change starts with valuing the time outside the 9 to 5. We're so committed to the 9 to 5, to working on somebody else's dream, that when we get home, we completely disvalue what comes after work. And there's so much time there. Even if we commit an hour per day, we can slowly create the momentum, and you can achieve so much. So I talk around how to do that, how to bring in a morning routine, how to bring in success habits, all purely because it's something that I achieved myself, and I'm also working on that currently at the moment in time. And I like to interview people who are where I want to be, so we can get and help the audience to know that these people who are achieving success are no different. They're doing just more with their 24 hours of the day, which they can do, which you can do as well.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's just, you said it perfectly. Just go in and start to take those steps, because you can't get to where you want if you don't take the steps,
Exactly.
And I think I actually had an interesting conversation the other day with someone for this podcast, and they mentioned something similar where we were talking about in the context of health and fitness. And, if you're overweight and you need to lose like 40 pounds, and, you didn't get that way from one beer. You didn't get that way from one bad meal. You didn't get that way from one day of not exercising. You can't accomplish your goals and your dreams with one, giant push and then giving up. It has to be small things every day. So, I mean, that's perfect, because then if you have that 1 hour, I mean, imagine at the end of a month, congratulate yourself for how far you've come. So that's
and what you've learned.
Point. Yeah, I love that. All right, so we got the podcast. Let's talk a little bit about your coaching. Does your coaching? I'll touch on this a couple ways. So I guess your coaching. How did you decide on coaching? Because I know you probably had a lot of opportunities. I mean, as an entrepreneur, sharing your dream and what you're learning, you're sharing it through the podcast, but you could offer courses, you could offer, you could write a book to sell to people, because you obviously love books, which remind me, I want to touch on it a little bit. I want to ask like 2 or 3 of your books that you would recommend, but how did you decide coaching was going to be the thing? How did you simplify it down to that one thing that you knew would make an impact?
It was more for coaching for me is because I felt that from my experiences, that I could help a lot of people. And I have had coaches in the past who have coached me, who have helped me achieve small goals, big goals. And I thought, you know what? I'm not determined to help other people. And I think I was guilty of throwing the self imposter syndrome upon myself. I didn't believe in myself when I first started that I could mentor somebody, that someone could come to me for the answers. And I think that was a lack of confidence in myself. And I started doing some research on what coaching actually was. And I realized it's all about asking questions. So when I'm coaching millennials, I coach millennials around certain topics around creating momentum, around how are they struggling to create momentum. And the podcast, I don't hold back on the podcast. I like to give as much value as I possibly can, because I feel that all value should be free. And a lot of the coach, or near enough all the coaching clients that I get are from the podcast. So one thing I didn't want to do is for me be a completely different person from the podcast and be a completely different person in real life. So the coaching for me started off as a lack of self-belief that I could mentor somebody and that I could tell somebody, listen, this is what you need to do. This is what I would advise. And then through the coaching, I'm slowly start to be like, okay, I can help you create momentum from you internally. You come up with your own ways by me asking the questions. But on the same front, that I can then say to you, right, where are you struggling? Okay, you're struggling in the mornings. Okay, this is how we can create your morning routine. You decide what will work for you, but I'll show you how to bring that into your morning routine.
I love that. So, well, for our audience, I think this is really important. You touched on a little bit of that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Which, it was interesting. We were having a conversation in another group that I'm a part of where we interviewed somebody who's pretty high up in a big name business. They were actually just named the number one like entrepreneurial business in the US. And we discussed this, and he was talking about how it doesn't matter what level you are on. As soon as you move to the next level, you have imposter syndrome there too. So the more you grow, you will still have imposter syndrome. So there's two cool things about that. If you know that ahead of time, you know that the people, if you look up to Tony Robbins or you look up to somebody they are still experiencing some of the things that you're experiencing. So it's a great thing to look at it that way and know, okay, like I'm no different than that person that I strive to be like, that I'm modeling their success. So it's a really big confidence builder, I think so. But my question would be that's the long-winded Southern way of getting to a question. Tell like a long story.
I like it.
My question would be, how did you get over the imposter syndrome? How did you is there one thing that you did, or was it a combination? But how did you get over that?
There was two big things that I've learned that's helped me out. The first was when I went traveling, and you are put in a room full of 8, 10, sometimes I was in a room with 20 people. You don't know who they are, you don't know what they do, or nothing at all. You just have to introduce yourself, and you have to force the confidence upon yourself, because if you don't, you're in a foreign country, thousands of miles from home. And then when you start speaking to people, you start finding out what they do. And I've made friends who are from England who are very successful in business. And after talking to them about even knowing that they had a business, they were having the same fears, the same doubts, the same lack of self-belief. And also, I built my confidence up, as I've said before, traveling. And I've become a confident person where I could walk into a room, where I could go solo traveling. But there was these people that were successful in business. They struggled with the whole element of that. And it just proved to me that, okay, you look at these people who you class as successful, because everyone classes as their own class of successfulness. These people who you class as success, you are also successful in areas that they aren't successful. So they may feel that they can be at kind of this imposter syndrome on what you're successful as. I don't know if that makes sense. And I thought, we're on a level playing field here. And then I read a book, and I can't remember what book it was. It was a few years ago. It was actually 3 points. Sorry. And that was I think it was The Great Escape. I think, or was it? I can't remember. It was an old war book that I read, and he said that he was tasked during the army to shave men's heads, to shave them off upon World War, so they could go to war. And he said that you had people there who got egos, people who had businesses, people who were poor, But when they had shaved heads and they were completely naked, you couldn't spot any difference in between them. And it just shows that we are all human. The only difference is that these people have taken action and you haven't. That is the only difference. And they have had to overcome that. And then I've completely forgot what the third one was. Yeah, sorry, I'm rambling.
No, I love it.
And then the third kind of imposter syndrome is, if I don't get over this self-imposter syndrome, then I'm never going to do anything. I'm never going to do anything. And I'm going to be sat there at 80 years of age, listening to my lying in a hospital bed, listening to my heart monitor beep away slower and slower, and be thinking, oh, what was I really worried about? And I want that. That's one of my biggest motivators, to eliminate that regret. Because I don't want that regret. I just want it. I'd rather go all in, and if it fails, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'd rather have a go, give it my all, and be sat on my deathbed thinking, you had a good go there, James. Well done.
Yeah.
Then I wish I would have had a go, I wish I would have had a go. Why did I let that get into fear? And that what drives me on. That what drives me on. So it's the first one was the traveling. The second one was the book that I read, and I must find that book and I can drop you on an email. And the third one was just eliminating that regret.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, we all say that, but if you really, I like the way that you stated it. Maybe as soon as you start to have that uneasy feeling, like, I want to do this, but I'm having second thoughts, sort of visualize yourself on your deathbed with that regret, and then put yourself and feel what it feels like. And if you feel what that feels like, then you're going to be motivated to just dive into it. So I found myself, it's amazing. It's similar to what you're talking about over the past, probably just like 4 or 5 months. I don't even question anything. When somebody asks me to do something, I say yes.
Yeah.
Every time I'm just like, yes, I'll do it. Yes. And then which when you have an 8-year-old daughter, that can sometimes cause problems. But, definitely when it comes to like, I don't even let the ego come in and try to talk me out of it. I just say yes. And it has opened so many new doors to opportunities and made so many connections with other people that the momentum is amazing just by saying yes. It's that simple. So
it is.
All right. So the last thing I want to ask you, and actually a couple things, but I wanted to ask you, this was an interesting conversation I had yesterday with another entrepreneur. And we were discussing how this was something I read in a Wayne Dyer book, The Power of Intention, I think is the name of the book. It's over there. But it was talking about abundance and how we all can tap into abundance. We are all in the middle of abundance at all times. But in order to stay in that constant state of abundance, when you receive something, you have to then turn around and share it with someone else. You can't be attached to it and hold on to it. So I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are on that. And if it's something that you're, if you are, obviously you have a serve first attitude. So I think it falls into that, but on service, what does that mean to you?
I think it's very important to give value. And that's something that I realized very early on in becoming an entrepreneur and setting up a business and a podcast. It's very important to share what you receive. And you are on this planet in any business at all, fast food, hospitality. I've worked in recruitment. I'm a gas engineer. That's kind of my background of what I did previously. Is you are always serving people. You are gaining knowledge. I was trained to be a gas engineer to then serve other people. I was training to work in recruitment to then serve other people to find jobs. And when you first start out, the big thing is not to focus on what you are going to gain, what money you are going to gain. You want to focus on, because more money is important first of all. We all want to earn money. It's silly if people say, "Oh no, I don't want to earn money." I don't want to earn money at all.
Right.
But you want to gain knowledge and gain wisdom, and then pass that on, to provide that value to other people. Because from my experience, seeing the change in other people, helping other people, to even just put a smile on someone's face, makes you feel so warm inside, and it gives you a sense of of happiness that can't be achieved by materialistic things.
Yes, definitely. And it's funny that you bring up, I think the money issue is something that a lot of people, they might feel guilty. Like if they're in, they have a serve first attitude and they want to create a mission-based business. But I was having this same discussion recently, and it's like, you can't, if you want to serve your mission and make an impact, a big impact on the people, what your purpose is, you can't do that if you don't have any money. So you have to make money. But the key is there's an entrepreneur, I believe his name's Akbar Sheikh. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. But his whole motto is earn more, give more. Yeah. Earn more to give more. So I mean, and he does amazing things, like he started a foundation to help children in Africa get dental work and get teeth where they didn't have dentists, like in their whole, with hundreds of miles away, and they come in and they help them out. But he helps deliver clean water to families. But it's all based, he's like, I couldn't do this if I didn't have a business and I wasn't focused on making money. He's like, I don't focus on making money for the energy of hoarding that money. Is for the energy of serving others and putting that money back out to good use.
Exactly.
So I think that's an amazing thing. So, all right, last thing I want to ask you, and then we'll wrap this up, but I want to know, because you talk about books being in, I love to read books too. I think I have like 4 going right now. But what, if you had to recommend to millennials or to anybody listening to this podcast, let's just make it two books that you would recommend that they read right now, what do you think that would be?
Okay, I know the first one. It's The Magic of Thinking Big, which I treat it as my Bible. It's something that I can fall back on, and I wouldn't be who I was today without that book. And a big thing that I love about the book is I always struggled to, when I was reading these self-development books and these books that are recommended, is you read them and then you're like, oh, how do I put this into practice? And the great thing about that book is that every chapter it says, right, this is what you need to do, and this is how to bring it into your life. Some things don't work, some things do work. It all works for different people, but this is something that I can fall back on. So definitely The Magic of Thinking Big. And then you got me here. I'd have to say The One Thing. I mean, once again, it increases focus, and it's so true. Just focus on the one thing that's going to bring you the results and get you closer towards your goal than the rest of the options that you have.
I love that. That it's funny because the synchronicity of discussions I love. Like remember I discussed how I have my other friend that I'm doing a podcast with. We set the 10-minute timer. We just did a podcast on implementation and how important implementation is. Information is not what's important. We can get information everywhere. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the magic of thinking big. It's like, okay, you get this. Now here's how you go implement it. Go do it. So I think that's very important. I love that. That's a great point. And then the one thing, one of my biggest things is to simplify. So it's like, this is like, I love when the energy is like this, and it's just like, okay, that's exactly perfect for the way I'm thinking and what other people are thinking too. Because if you want to cut out, as an entrepreneur, and for somebody who's going to be successful like you are, and you find your mission, you find your authentic self, you know what you want to do and what you want to serve, a lot of times it can be overwhelming. So you have to simplify to that one thing and then focus on that. Yeah. Really great at that. And you'll fulfill your mission, and you'll impact the lives of others. So
yeah, completely agree. You'll get there closer by focusing on one thing than by focusing on 20 things at once.
Yes.
Anyway, and just by doing that one thing one week, one thing the next week, you will get there, and you'll do that better than if you were to just spread yourself over a large area.
Yes. Well, James, I appreciate you being here. I love hearing your story. It's very motivational, and I love your mission. And congratulations on the podcast. You're blowing so many other podcasters out. Not that you're trying to, but I mean, I'm just blown away. Like 100 episodes that fast. That's amazing. I was just in an event with Russell Brunson, a private event, the ClickFunnels founder. And that's exactly what he was preaching to us was go out as part of one of the days, because he's getting ready to release a book called Traffic Secrets, which is going to be the third in his trilogy. But he was preaching that go out, do a minimum between now and a year from now. I want you to have 100 episodes.
Wow.
So now I'm be like, hey, Russell, you got to meet this guy. He's got 100 in like less than 4 months. So
I'm gladly speak to Russell. Easily.
Yeah, Russell's a great guy. And he's the one that actually started the conversation around implementation because of what he just reframed the way his business is operating. And they're giving people a lot of training, a lot of information for free.
Yeah.
But what he tried to share with some of us who are in a private coaching group with him is that, you know what's really important is not, if you ask my inner circle members, my people who are most successful, I mean, you're on track. I'll tell you this because it's one, they focus on one thing, they simplify, and two, they implement. Yeah. So you've already got the background for that, and you've already got the blueprint. So you're on the way. So that's great. Well,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before we go, if there's anything you want to share, I know I want to share where people can find you. And then if you've got anything out there, like any, a free discovery call, anything you want to share or anything like that, feel free to just let us know about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I've got currently an offer just where you can jump on, we'll have a chat about your dream, 30 minutes free coaching call or habit review call. What we do is we talk about your dream, what's keeping you stuck at the moment in time, what could be habits, routines, and how we can create the momentum. And we focus on creating momentum over 90 days. And we purely look at 90 days because 30 days is a habit, 60 days is a routine, and 90 days is a lifestyle. And that comes from, with the podcast, I wanted to get to 90 days. And seeing the momentum that can create is incredible. So yeah, it's a 30-minute free call. We just jump on, we have a chat. And if we don't end up working together, you'll still leave with 3 key ways that you can implement straight away into your life and move forward and create momentum.
I love it. So how do they reach out to you to get that?
Yeah, I best mention that. It's at www.launchwithjames.com.
Launchwithjames.com. Okay.
That's the one, yeah.
Is that the best way to reach you? I guess just go there and then they can find your other, information about your podcast and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. They can head over to that page, and also you can connect with me on Instagram at Millennial Motivation Podcast. Drop me a direct message. I love hearing from people, and yeah, I'd love to chat and love to speak just about anything really.
Great. Well, I will put links to all that stuff in the show notes as well. So if you want to get in touch with him, you can it's easy to implement by just taking one click. There
exactly. Yes, correct.
One thing and implementation. We just worked it in again. There you go.
Perfect. We're ambassadors for this.
Yes, exactly. I'm feeling like it now. Well, I appreciate it, James. It was really great to meet you. I mean, it was like that we met by random chance and got to know each other. And now I feel like I know you much better. And I'm really glad that we met. I love your story, and I'm going to start diving into your podcast because I know it's going to be helpful and motivating as well. So I will talk to you soon.
Well,
and
thank you for being on, first of all. Thank you for having me on.
Yes. Thanks, James.